Rodri to Barca instead of Madrid is the plot twist transfer of the summer. Meanwhile, Arsenal move on from Vinny Jr. by targeting Spurs' captain. Chelsea sign who? The GOAT Irankunda is on his way to Sporting, and Argentina's FA announced their full support to Gianni Infantino. This is DMAC Daily. Spain's World Cup winning captain, the player of the tournament, and a former Ballon d'Or winner has taken the world by storm today with the development that he's very keen on a transfer to Spain, but not in the capacity that we previously anticipated. Now, it's no secret that Rodri has been eyeing a change in scenery for some time now. The former Atletico Madrid player has since spent 7 highly successful years as a Manchester City player, winning every single club trophy on offer, 13 titles in totality. Individually, his resume is extraordinary. The Ballon d'Or is one thing, but winning player of the tournament at his last 2 international major tournaments as a holding midfielder is genuinely legendary stuff, especially considering that he had an ACL blow sandwiched in between, but now aged 30 with 12 months remaining on his current City deal, it appears that he's finally ready to close out this chapter and return back home. Earlier this year, Rodri had an interview with Spanish radio station Onda Cero where the interviewer asked him an interesting question. Would you like to return to Spain, to Madrid, to La Liga? To which Rodri replied, I'd like to return, yes, obviously. Now, to be fair, one could interpret that as a move to Spain in general rather than a specific club, but the interviewer reminded him of previously playing for Atletico Madrid, to which Rodri boldly stated, having played for Atletico Madrid doesn't prevent me from playing for Real Madrid. He then also said, you can't turn down the best clubs in the world. So following that interview, it was clear Rodri was on board with the idea of a Real Madrid transfer. Then the World Cup happened. Rodri reminded everyone of his world-class pedigree, so most people were anticipating the inevitable Madrid pursuit. Now, they instead prioritized other signings first, including free agents Silva, Canate, followed by fullbacks Dumfries, Cucurella, young forward Espi, and of course the record transfer for Yan Diomande, where today we finally got the Comunicado Oficial, or Leipzig zone, here we actually go. But all the while, Rodri has remained a principal target for Los Blancos. In fact, there were active talks taking place in late July, but perhaps Madrid slightly dropped the ball here with the Diomande situation, plus Vinny Jr.'s contract renewal, because Barca have suddenly entered the race, and according to Rodri's own agent, the midfielder has made up his mind. Quote, out of respect for Madrid, as they have been class, Rodri informed them that his decision is to join Barca. Interestingly enough, The Athletic reported that he favored the Catalan Giants due to the stylistic similarities to his current environments. You know, he has spent the last 7 years at City and Spain dictating the play from deep as a ball progressing 6 in teams that primarily look to dominate possession. The rationale from Rodri and his camp here, I guess, is that the adaptation period would be smoother at a club like Barca, where it is in their DNA to always dominate on the ball, as opposed to Madrid, who tend to be a bit more flexible in their setup, even their formations too. We often see Madrid line up in a 4-4-2 with less emphasis on control. That's not to suggest he'd struggle at Madrid. No, in my opinion, Rodri makes any team in the world significantly better because he's like the perfect 6, technically exquisite, as intelligent as they come, but he also possesses the physical prowess necessary to thrive in a modern game that demands high-level athleticism. Even post-ACL with niggling injuries, the guy is still a monster. Also, Real Madrid have been lacking this kind of unique profile for years now, someone that can dictate the pace. Ever since Toni Kroos left, they've struggled big time to replace his press-resistant and intelligent quality. So for Barcelona, this is a dream signing if they pull it off in multiple ways, because you're hijacking the player Madrid probably need the most, really. So it's a big flex for the Catalans. Rodri Rodri choosing the heritage of Barca over the Galactico project, then there's the fact that he definitely upgrades an already strong team. You know, as good as Hansi Flick's sides have been over the last 2 years, this team isn't perfect. Obviously, the high line approach dominates the discourse as to being Flick's primary flaw in his tactical system. But I look back to Barca's Copa del Rey and UCL exit both to Atletico last season, and I think in those games, Barca lacked a bit of bite at times. As technically superb as De Jong and Pedri are, one could argue they're slightly lacking in the duel-winning department. Rodri is a massive upgrade in that department. I often see him as a modern-day version of Busquets in a sense. Maybe slightly less poised on the ball, but far stronger from a defensive standpoint and in terms of his overall ability to cover ground. Now, at this stage, I've seen very little reporting about the finances involved in a potential deal. Fabrice Hawkins, who tends to be a pretty reliable journo, has suggested that City are hoping to get 80 million euros for the Spaniard, but considering he's got less than a year remaining on his deal, a package in the region of 60 to 70 mil would probably do the trick. Beyond the finances, I'm curious as to how Rodri's arrival would impact the team structure, and also what this means for the future of several other squad members. We know that Flick has an affinity for a 4-2-3-1 with either Fermin or Olmo in that 10 role, but maybe he'd revert to a 4-3-3 where Rodri is at his very best, perhaps a less chaos-inducing system looking to enable more control. De La Fuente's Spain steadily suffocated teams in this exact manner, but I can't see Flick going down this route just quietly. I'm very interested to see what this means for certain players. I've seen a lot of chit-chat about De Jong's future coming into question. He's currently out for an extended period of time with an MCL injury, but I assume he still has a big role to play at this club. That being said, I do think Casado, Gavi, and Bernal may see reduced playing time off the back of this arrival. Bernal is one I anticipated having a big season in 26-27, but it's going to be so competitive in that area of the park, so something surely got to give there. This would also be a devastating blow for City, obviously. Losing Pep is one thing, but your irreplaceable star midfielder is a nightmare. Sure, Elliot Anderson is a promising addition, but no way he can fill the void alone. Enzo Fernandez has been linked heavily in the past, but he's also a very different player to Rodri, so there will be a domino effect to this transfer. Maybe City try to even lure a Barca midfielder, but that's just me speculating at this point. Nonetheless, one of the wildest transfer plot twists of the 2026 transfer window. Speaking of plot twists, and I almost spilt out my coffee this morning when I saw a certain headline, quote, Atletico Madrid renew Christian Romero pursuit, Arsenal also interested in Tottenham's captain. Bruh, there's actually no way. Forget about Vinny Jr. to Arsenal. This is somehow an even crazier pursuit. Now, I'm going to preface this headline by saying I don't believe this is a plausible scenario. In fact, the article itself doesn't really think so either, but we got to interrogate nonetheless because it's mental stuff. Now, as we all know, Romero is expected to leave Tottenham permanently this summer. Despite only signing a new contract until 2029 last August, he's been the subject of extensive criticism over the past year or so. He's also frequently been linked with an exit previously. This summer, it's only intensified further. Inter have been the front runners throughout the last few months. A deal in the region of 40 million euros has actively been in the works, but Atletico Madrid have now renewed their interest too. Side note, is Romero not the most Atletico Madrid player you've ever seen? Like, this man was surely born to play under Simeone at some point. But then there's these supposed Arsenal links all of a sudden, which would be the craziest villain arc ever. The Sol Campbell parallel is fascinating because remember, he too was Spurs' captain when he made that infamous move to Highbury back in 2001. Gallas has since done it too in the opposite direction, but yeah, this would be on another stratosphere entirely. We know Spurs have completed a bit of a centre-back overhaul in the sense of bringing Van Hecke and Senesi to the club. Romero's departure felt inevitable to a degree, but to join Spurs' arch enemy would evoke something akin to a civil war in North London. Granted, Arsenal are genuinely looking to strengthen in the centre-back department, so it's not completely nonsense, but the current stand of Tottenham's hierarchy is that Romero is for sale, except in the direction of Arsenal. Even if you offer double what Inter or Atletico are willing to pay, just forget about it. Honestly, I think this article kind of falls below the editorial standards at The Athletic, because there's no quotes, no mention of an anonymous source within the confines of Arsenal or Spurs. It's just that, quote, Arsenal admire Romero. So make of that what you will, but maybe this was just a way to make everyone forget about the failed Vinny Jr. pursuit. Moving from North to West London now, and Chelsea have completed their 7th signing of the summer transfer window, with 28-year-old Rayo Vallecano left-back Pep Chavaria joining the Blues in a €19 million fee. Like we've seen with the Lacroix, Hendo, and Welbeck deals, Chelsea are again targeting an older, experienced player who can contribute immediately to the project. A player that had been linked for quite some time now. It appears as though this is another Alonso-backed target, one that can come in and compete alongside Joel Hato for that vacant left-back spot off the back of Cucurella's recent departure. Chavaria is a particularly unique purchase for Chelsea though, because his career trajectory is almost the complete opposite of Chelsea's typical recruitment profile. 6 years ago, he was literally playing in the 3rd tier of Spain before moving to Zaragoza and then Rayo Vallecano, where he made his La Liga debut at 24 and his European debut at 27. So very different to what we're used to seeing in terms of his profile. He's very attacking minded, scored an absolute banger via Atleti last year, but the bulk of his qualities come from his crossing and overlapping runs. Quite a similar profile to another new signing, Palestra, just on the opposite flank. He also is a bit different to Hato. The Dutch defender likes to make those underlap runs, whereas the Spaniard will basically hug the touchline. From what we've seen from Alonso thus far, he's looking to play a back 4 as opposed to wing back, so don't expect Grimaldo 2.0 here. I don't think he's in that same mold of an elite goal-scoring wing back either. That being said, I haven't seen enough to have a fully fledged opinion at this point. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've been tuning into Rayo Vallecano games week in, week out for years, but as a Chelsea fan, I just like the idea that the club is signing another player without primarily thinking about the increased evaluation down the line. That strategy has pretty much failed Chelsea, so I'm excited about the evident change in recruitment philosophy. I'm also very excited about a certain Aussie starboy moving to Portugal, as Nestor Irankunda is set to sign for Sporting in a £17 million move from Watford, the next step of his glistening career. You know, I've been watching this lad ball out professionally ever since he was 15 years old at Adelaide. I know Harrington is another exceptional A-League product to come to the forefront recently, but in terms of pure X-Factor ability, Irankunda is the best I've ever seen come out of Australia. It's why Bayern were so quick to poach him at 18. He didn't get that senior breakthrough, so he moved to Watford, a club where he was given far more first-team opportunities, scored some absolute worldies throughout the season. He then delivered an iconic World Cup goal for the Socceroos. There were active talks with newly promoted Premier League side Hull City, but instead he's on his way to Lisbon to join one of the very best clubs in Europe from a development standpoint. I couldn't think of a better environment to hone in the technical side of his game. Obviously, there's so much ability in terms of his speed, overall directness, and his ability to score worldies, but playing for one of the better teams in the league, he'll need to massively improve in his combination play, his decision making, and becoming more adept at breaking those low block defenses. That's something he'll have to get used to and improve in, because the Irankunda of today is a menacing threat in transition, but is not nearly as effective in a team that tends to dominate the ball. That being said though, considering the permanent departures of Trincao, Kenda, and Alisson Santos, one can only assume he'll come in as an important first-team player, which would be huge for Australian football, because remember, Sporting reached the UCL quarters last season. This is a team with serious European credentials, so don't sleep on the Aussie starboy. If this development path goes according to plan, we could see him at a truly elite club in a year or two's time. And now for some other rapid-fire transfer updates from the past 24 hours, and Coventry have dropped €30 million on one of the World Cup's breakout African talents, Caleb Urengi, FM players, if you know, you know, he's set to join Lampard's project. Meanwhile, Franco Mastantuono has arrived in Italy to sign with Fiorentina on a season-long loan. Good to see him opt for regular first-team football as opposed to warming the bench in Madrid. Speaking of Argentines on loan, an ex-Chelsea legend and Brighton outcast Facundo Buonanotte is destined for Elche for a season-long loan, whilst Thiago Almada is leaving Atletico Madrid after just 1 year, joining River Plate in a €20 million deal. That's his fourth club now in the space of 2 years, but he's not the only Argentine to exit Atleti. Nahuel Molina is joining Roma for €18 million, and opposite fullback for the national team, Facundo Medina, signs for Leverkusen for 23 mil. Akliouche officially became a PSG player today in a €50 million move from Monaco, as the Parisians look to strengthen further in the upcoming days with Mika Götze and Ferran deals in the background. And RB Leipzig have secured the signature of rising Hoffenheim and Kosovo star Fisnik Aslani for 30 mil. We turn our attention now to FIFA news and talk about PR suicide. Argentina's FA has released a public statement declaring their full support for Gianni Infantino. Oh my days. That is just embarrassing stuff. That, or it's just peak rage bait. I'm not planning on relitigating the recent privatization of the World Cup saga. If you're unaware, check out 2 of my previous vids that touch on the subject in depth. Pretty much the entirety of the world, bar a few of Infantino's morally bankrupt pals, are against this idea, and it's caused a reckoning for the president's leadership. Everyone wants him out. In the past 48 hours, we've seen FIFA's own chief of global football development, Arsene Wenger, turn on him amongst a host of other top FIFA executives. UEFA are doubling down on their boycott stance. They're pushing for his removal. Luis Figo then popped in with a damning assessment, calling for his resignation, saying it is too late to save his dignity, but it is not too late to save football. He should go now. But the world champion room readers, Argentina, then thought, you know what, now is a good time to show how much we actually love Infantino. Their statement of full-fledged support is so comically devoid of objective reality. I don't know what else to say. The glaze is one thing, right? Praising him for apologizing for being exposed with his scheme. They then mention the profound transformation of FIFA like it's a good thing. And to be fair, this is technically true. Infantino has definitely transformed FIFA from a well-known corrupt entity to the most overt scammers in sporting history. But there's more. They then went on to highlight Infantino's adherence to democratic procedures, like the time he democratically overturned a red card for USA's star striker following a phone call from Donald Trump, or when he democratically overturned FIFA's own rulebook to enact a 27-minute World Cup final halftime show. Like, Argentina's FA is actively fueling anti-Argentina sentiment. Let's be real here. Like, I don't buy into the full-blown conspiracy angle that FIFA rigged the World Cup for Argentina in collaboration with Infantino. Were they the beneficiary of multiple questionable calls? Yes. Did they frequently behave in an unsportsmanlike and outright toxic manner? Absolutely, especially in the final itself. Criticism entirely warranted there, but a lot of the hatred was also, in my opinion, fueled by bad faith actors. A lot of football influencers were just shamelessly peddling misinformation for views. And I know saying this isn't really all that popular. By highlighting this, people will probably accuse me of being biased towards Argentina, to which all I can say is, dude, I'm Australian. I got no stakes in this game. I'm just against reactionary sentiment in general. Like, think about it. This idea that the World Cup was single-handedly rigged just for Argentina is silly, because there were terrible refereeing decisions throughout the entire tournament. This was objectively the worst officiated World Cup in my lifetime. The overruling of suspensions to Balogun, to Ronaldo, it only fueled further distrust of FIFA. Even the technology was a mess. The whole microchip debate in the Croatia-Portugal game, the England v Norway game with the Skycam. Like, if Argentina had rigged the tournament, why would the better team England benefit in that situation? It's a conspiracy theory devoid of critical thought. With all that being said, Argentina's FA and their decision to publicly shill for the biggest con man in the sport's history is just disgraceful. The mafia boss of FIFA is the biggest threat to football. So shame on Argentina's FA, shame on Morocco's FA, shame on Egypt's, Sri Lanka's, and whoever supports Infantino off the back of this blatant attempt to destroy the World Cup. But that's my take on the situation. Argentina are never beating the allegations though, are they? Anyways, guys, that's all for today's DMAC Daily. Appreciate you tuning in as always, and I'll see you next time.